This episode of Geek's Guide to the Galaxy is made possible thanks to support from listeners like you. So if you enjoyed the show and want it to continue, please support us on Patreon over at patreon.com/geeks or via PayPal over at geeksguideshow.com/crowdfunding. And I want to give a special thank you to Anton Svetko, who just made a very generous contribution to the show via PayPal. So big thanks again to everyone who's contributed. We really appreciate it. All right, so now let's get to our show. Hi, I'm David Barr Kirtley, author of the book Save Me Please and Other Stories, and welcome to episode 609 of Geek's Guide to the Galaxy. Today on the show, we'll be discussing the movies The Running Man, The Long Walk, The Dead Zone, and The Mist, all of which are based on stories by Stephen King. And this will include spoilers for everything in those movies, so just be aware of that. And I'm joined by three guests. So first up, we've got Andrea Kail, making her 45th appearance on the show. She's a graduate of the Odyssey Writers Workshop, and her short fiction appears in the Writers of the Future anthology, Fantasy Magazine, and Lightspeed. She's been a television writer, producer, and script supervisor for shows such as Late Night with Conan O'Brien, The Chew, and WWE's Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown. And she's currently a writer for Pixelberry Studios. So, Andrea, welcome to the show.
Great to be back, Dave.
The next up, we've got Matthew Kressel, making his 44th appearance on the show. He's the author of the novels King of Shards, Queen of Static, and Space Trucker Jess, the short story collection Histories Within Us, and the writing advice book Dispatches from the Outer Deep. He also hosts the Nerd Count podcast along with Mercurio de Rivera, and together with Ellen Datlow, he hosts the monthly Fantastic Fiction reading series in New York City. So, Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave. Good to be back.
And also joining us today is Tom Gerencer, making his 38th appearance on the show. He's the author of the business book Think Like Google, the short story collection Intergalactic Refrigerator Repairmen Seldom Carry Cash, and the popular science book How It's Made, which he wrote for the Discovery Channel. His middle grade novel The Magic Ski Mountain is out now. So, Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dave. Always fun to be here.
Okay, so we're going to start off with Andrea.
Yes.
And have you tell us about your history reading Stephen King?
It's a very short history. we didn't have any horror in our house. So the only two books I've read of his are Pet Sematary and The Tommyknockers. And I read them both, I guess it was late 80s when they came out. And Pet Sematary was first, and it scared the living shit out of me. And then Tommyknockers, not quite scary. It's really kind of more of a science fiction book. But there are images from that book that stick with me to this day. So why I never read more Stephen King, I guess I just didn't want to have the shit scared out of me anymore.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I did not read a lot of Stephen King growing up, precisely because I thought the books would be too scary. I was really scared by horror stuff as a kid. I did, for some reason, read Skeleton Crew as a kid, and I really loved that. And so I read The Mist and The Jaunt, and I think it was called The Raft. A couple of stories from that really stuck with me. I really loved them. But I think that was pretty much the only Stephen King I read growing up. And then when I was out of college, I was like, man, I should really, try to know more about Stephen King. He's such a major pop culture figure, American writer. And so so back then I read about 10 Stephen King books. And so for most authors, if I had read 10 of their books, I would consider myself a major fan of them, But with Stephen King, if you haven't read like 50 books, I feel like you're not even trying. So I'd say I'm only kind of a moderate Stephen King fan. I've really enjoyed the stuff of his I've read, but I've never read like The Dark Tower or
I kind of wish I'd read The Dark Tower. I just because it's fantasy-ish, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should try that.
Yeah, it was like his idea was to do something like Lord of the Rings, except with a kind of a Western, like American Western, flavor, rather than medieval English flavor. But so that's me. So let's get Matt in here too. What's your history with Stephen King?
Pretty similar to Andrea's. I didn't read a lot of Stephen King growing up. Interestingly enough, I think the first Stephen King I read was my sister had a collection of the Bachman books. Or like it was like that really thick trade paper.
I remember that
paperback. And I did actually read I did actually read. I don't know if I finished the whole thing, but I remember reading The Long Walk for sure. But I think I was like you, Dave. I was definitely scared, and I was more interested in science fiction and fantasy. And I had recently discovered Lovecraft, and I didn't really know that Stephen King kind of went in that sort of supernatural horror direction as a kid. So if I had known that, I probably would have read a lot more King at the time. It was only like later as I got older that I ended up reading more of his stuff. So yeah, early on, I just wasn't that connected to the King world. I did see a lot of the films, of course, but not the books.
I guess I'll say the Bachman books, I did read that one. And so I did read The Running Man and The Long Walk. So I actually have read, out of the 4 movies we're going to talk about today, just by coincidence, I've read 3 of them. So that's good. But it was a long time ago. I mean, it was like 30 years ago. But so I don't remember all the details for sure. But I did read those. But so let's get Tom in here too, because I know Tom's a big Stephen King fan. This was actually Tom's idea to talk about Stephen King. So Tom, tell us about your history with Stephen King.
Yeah, huge Stephen King fan. I could safely call him my favorite writer from the time I was in grade school all the way up through my 30s. I read everything by him up through there. You know, it's funny you mentioned his if you haven't read 50 of his books, you're not even trying. There was a Saturday Night Live skit in the 80s where somebody was interviewing him, but he didn't want to stop writing during the interview. So he's just sitting there at a typewriter, like just like clicking away, but he's not paying attention to the typewriter. He's just talking to the interviewer, like they're having a chat. And the pages are like flying out of the typewriter and landing on the floor. And the guy's like, "Do you want me to get those?" Like, no, I'll pick them up later. And then they go on through this interview for a while, and then he stops typing and he looks shocked. And the interviewer says, "What happened?" And he goes, "That's it. There's no more. I'm done." And the interviewer looks at him in shock for a while, and he goes, "Oh no!" And then his fingers start flying again, and his pages start spitting out again. But the interesting parallel to that, when he got hit by a van when he was out walking on the road near where the mist was set, I looked that up, and maybe that's not true, but he was out walking and he got hit by a van. And he announced that he wasn't going to write anymore. He was going to wrap up a few projects he was working on. He's going to retire. And then it was like he went, no. And he just kept going.
Yeah.
He's never really stopped. But I love the guy. I think, I love him as a person. I love him as a writer. I've read so many of his books. I didn't want to read his stuff at first, but I had my friend who lived down the shore from me. We grew up on a lake in Maine. And my friend who lived down the shore from me loved him and told me I should read his stuff. And I was like, no, I don't like horror. But then I was like, well, I got to read it because my friend's always talking about it. And when I read it, I thought, it's not horror. It kind of is, but it's not horror the way most people think of horror. It's much more like Lord of the Rings or fantasy, or there's like scary things in it. But it's always, the thread of the story is always, there's somebody who's going to stand up against this stuff and who's going to fight against it, and you're going to cheer them on, and they might win or they might lose, but it doesn't feel like horror. It doesn't feel like just like, some horror is like, there's like, you can't win. Like Freddy Krueger, he's always going to pop back up. He's always going to kill everybody in the end. And that's not the way it is in a King book. And I grew up through reading his stuff. My first King book was Salem's Lot, which is set in Maine, not very far from where I grew up. And I used to swim in the morning a mile down the shore to my friend's camp, and we'd play Monopoly on the lawn all day, and his mom would make us sandwiches, and I'd stay way too long, and then it would be dark, and I didn't have a flashlight ever because flashlights were like, back then they would run out of battery in like 3 hours. So nobody ever had a working flashlight. So I'd be like, oh man, it's dark and I got to walk home and there's no street lights and it's through the woods. I'm not swimming home and it's through the woods and I got to walk through this completely pitch black woods where it was so dark. I had to look up and see the river of stars between the trees, between the white pines, so I could stay on the road. Otherwise I'd find myself walking in like deep leaves off the trail. And I had all these images from Salem's Lot in my head. There's a part where these kids are walking on a trail and a vampire jumps out and grabs one of them. So the guy terrified me when I was a kid. And then his characters I find so amazing. I get done reading a King book and I'm sad because I can't hang out with those people anymore. I think he's brilliant with his characterizations. His endings, people always criticize, but I think he's always like, oh, the ending is just a way to stop the book from being infinite. But no, I have lots, and his movies I've watched, and I'm from Maine, so
I will say, Tom, on jumping off that Maine point. So I know you live there. So I visited there with my wife. I don't remember what year it was. I want to say it was like 2012 or something. And I feel like we were only there for a week or two, and I feel like I just walked or drove through every Stephen King story. Like, we're in the middle of the road. We're in the middle of the night. We're on this like quiet road, and the stars are out, and it's beautiful. There's no moon. All of a sudden, fog, like from out of nowhere, like the thickest, densest fog. I'm like, what? I'm like going like 5 miles an hour. Like, where did this fog come from? And then boom, the fog is gone, and we're on the road. I'm like, what the hell? And you have these main highways twisting through these like really residential neighborhoods. So like people are cruising like 50, 60 miles an hour. And you could see where something like Pet Cemetery, where, a truck is barreling down these roads. But it's a beautiful state. It's a scary state. It's a scary state. And like, you could just see how it inspired so much.
Just if we're going to tell Maine stories, I used to go to Maine every summer for a week or 2 weeks for years. And I have encountered the Mist thing. I have encountered, it's US 1, Route 1, right?
Yeah,
US 1, yeah. It's the coastal route. And it's really one of the most beautiful roads you can drive. It's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
And
nice.
But have you ever been to the prison there that was based on, that Shawshank is based on?
No.
It was right. No. It's right on the road. I don't remember what town it is, but we used to stop there every year because they had a prison store, and they were their stuff is all made by prisoners, and it was all the people working in there were prisoners, and it was just a great place to shop. You get all this great woodwork. I still have a bunch of stuff from there. But yes, I have seen all of the small towns, the scary woods, the mist.
The woods. The woods are so haunted there.
It's terrifying.
Like we were at this hotel in the North Woods.
Yes.
And my wife was like, do not leave the premises. And I just wanted to wander in the wood. I'm like, but the woods are calling me. I need to go into the woods.
Yeah, we stayed in a hotel.
You're from New York.
We stayed in a hotel once in Moosehead Lake, which is in the Great North Woods.
Oh,
it was
yes.
Beautiful place.
It may have been the same hotel.
It might have been, yeah. It was like on a hill, and at the bottom of the hill was the lake, and it's like stunning and also gorgeous. Oh, and there was a plane crash there in the 60s, a military plane crash on Elephant Hill. And we went up there, and that was actually one of the spookiest places I've ever been, because you're just walking through on this path, and you're like, what am I doing here? There's nothing. Right. And then all of a sudden there's like pieces of garbage, and you're like, somebody came up here and dumped stuff all over the place. And then you realize it's pieces of a plane, and it was like a B-52 or something. And then there's like giant tires, like stuck in the mud. And it's just, it was really scary. Like I really felt like this is a place that could be haunted.
Well, to pull it back to Stephen King, I used to read his books with a Maine Atlas and Gazetteer not far from my elbow. And that is it's a wonderful, before there was Google Maps, there was that, and it had like 55 pages or something, and it had every little cow path in the state. And when he would talk about, they're in Derry, Maine, or he would have these different Castle Rock or whatever, I would pick out the landmarks and go, wait a minute, I know where that landmark is. That's in Bangor, or that's in Rockland, or you'd figure out the actual town, and you'd look. And when you mentioned the Tommyknockers, I've had my gazetteer out for that one. And had I been looking out my bedroom window when I was a kid at the right moment, I could have seen the spaceship from that go up into the sky at the end. Because it was literally one town away from me. And I used to drive through the town all the time, the town where the people's teeth would fall out because they'd go by the alien influence.
Like I said, those are the images that stick in my mind to this day. Like
yeah,
the teeth falling out. I'm terrified by that.
And me too.
Horrified, I should say.
Me and my friend Greg would actually go on pilgrimages to the place like Pet Cemetery. We'd drive up to where that was, or we'd drive to different locations in the books and be like, that's where that is. Or I'll talk about the mist later, but there's a specific, that store I've been into. And we used to go to these places on purpose. We used to go to his house once in a while and be like, oh, let's go to Stephen King's house, drive to his house and like just look through his fence. He had a fence, this great old haunted house looking mansion with this wrought iron fence with like bats and spiders worked in wrought iron in the fence. So being from Maine has a special place in my heart because he peoples his books with so many details and locations from my childhood that it's like you're reading his books and you're like, this is where I live. This is my life.
Let me just quickly tell my Stephen King story. So my wife is a big Stephen King fan, and I went to college in Maine, so I lived in Maine for 4 years. And so when we first started dating, she wanted to go up to Maine to see where I went to school. And, and so it just came up, oh, well, Stephen King lives in Maine. And she said, do you know where? And I said, no. I just type into Google Stephen King's house, and it comes up with a picture of it and a map with a little star on it.
Key code to open the lock. Get in.
And it was right on the way, of where we were going. We were going to drive out to the coast. So we just drove right by it. And I just thought we would be the only crazy people like driving by Stephen King's house, taking pictures and stuff. But while we were there, just like nonstop, people are driving by, taking pictures in front of his house. It was just every 10 minutes somebody came by. It was crazy.
He used to give out Halloween candy from his house on Halloween. People would like line up to go get Halloween candy from him.
I also, by the way, got married in Maine. I completely forgot that.
Oh, wow.
That thing.
Yeah. I got married on a boat, like one of those boats that take off from like Camden and Rockland.
Yeah.
And we got married on a boat by the captain off the coast of Maine. It was beautiful. Yeah. Got divorced on dry land, of course, but.
Well, we won't go.
No need to talk about it.
Maybe we should move on to these movies.
Oh, we're going to talk about this movie.
Did I kill the discussion? Oh, yes.
All right.
No, we really do need to move on to these movies. So the first one we're going to talk about is The Running Man. And so this is based on a very early novel by Stephen King. This is one of the Bachman books. These are books that he wrote when he was young and that never got published initially. And then once he was famous, he sort of created a pseudonym to see if he could do it again, if he published books under a different name, if people would still like them and they would still be popular. Mm-hmm. And so this is The Running Man is the one that just came out, not to be confused with the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie from the 80s, which was also supposedly based on Stephen King's story, but the plot is completely different. There's absolutely nothing, aside from the basic idea of a TV show where the contestants are hunted and killed. Everything else is completely different. So we're not even going to talk about that one. But this new one is much more faithful to Stephen King's story, so we're going to talk about it. I guess I should explain too that for these panels, obviously there's like a million Stephen King movies, mm-hmm. and for this panel, for this 2-part panel, we're going to be focusing on the ones that are the most science fiction, like the closest to science fiction. So that's how we picked these particular movies. Okay, so The Running Man. There's it's in the future. It's sort of a dystopian future, and there's the most popular TV show is called The Running Man, where contestants are basically fugitives out in the world, and they have to survive for 30 days while being hunted by like a team of professional killers. And if they survive the whole time, they get $1 billion, I think. But as far as we know, nobody's ever done it at the beginning of the movie. So that's the basic setup. So Andrea, what'd you think?
Well,
What were your expectations / initial impressions of The Running Man?
My expectations were so I thought the trailer was fantastic, and I'm like, this is going to be so much fun, and it's an Edgar Wright movie, and I loved what's his name, Versus the World. What's the name of that movie?
Scott Pilgrim.
Scott Pilgrim. I love that movie. So I went into this with very high expectations and walked out of the movie thinking the phrase I came up with was half baked. But then the more I thought about it, it's really more like 3/4 baked. Like it's almost there, and just never quite hits that level of breaking out of it's just a action thriller and to something that's spectacular. Well, and I could go into reasons why, but I figured you're going to slap my hand. So
actually, let me get Matt in here because I saw on Facebook that Matt really liked this movie. So maybe we'll start off on a positive note and have Matt tell us what he liked.
I'm always a downer.
I mean, my reaction was kind of opposite Andrea. I went in with extremely low expectations. Before the movie started, there was a bunch of trailers for like terrible movies. I don't know. It was like Scream 17 and something with Jack Black and Paul Rudd. Was it like Anaconda 2 or something?
Oh, yes, that was it. Anaconda 2.
And I was just like, these movies are bad. And usually that's a sign that the movie you're going to watch is bad. And then the first 5-10 minutes of The Running Man, where they had David Zayas from Dexter. He played like Dexter's partner. He plays his boss. He plays Glenn Powell's boss in this. And like the acting was so bad and the dialogue was so bad. I'm like, this is terrible. But then very quickly I started to realize that they're just not interested in character development. They're like, okay, Ben Richards, he's got anger management issues. He's trying to save his kid. Go. Like, and that's it. That's all the character development you get. Mm-hmm. And once they do that, and once I sort of just was like, all right, he's just going to be angry all the time. That's his only emotion. I was kind of into it and I found myself really enjoying it. And, there were parts of it that were just sort of ridiculous, many, many parts that were ridiculous. Yeah. But I think it worked as a satire. And I think the original movie was absolutely a satire with the guy, the MC from Family Feud. Yeah. Someone help me with his name.
Richard Dawson.
Richard Dawson, thank you. And I really liked the character that played him in this.
Coleman Domingo, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's why Andrew's always great
with
names.
I am terrible with names, and I can't believe I actually came up with both.
I don't think you are. But I found that the satire worked really well, and there was a really strong current of like social commentary, I thought, especially with like the whole idea of like deep fakes, where it's just like we're just going to fake this to get the most ratings, but then they say, well, why don't you just fake the whole thing? And he's like, well, we found there's a human element that we can't replicate. And I was like, yeah, I mean, we're seeing that now, and I thought that was really cool and fun to have in the thing. I mean, I would never say that this is a great movie by any means, but it's been a long time since I've seen like a popcorn action thriller that really held my attention all the way through. And this one happened to do it in a way that I thought was clever most of the time. And the last I will say is that Michael Cera is brilliant in this. Like playing this sort of bunker prepper who lives with his mom. That it was just who had like an aversion to hot dogs.
All right, so let's get Tom in here. So Tom, we sort of, so Andrea thinks this was 3/4 baked, and Matt thinks it's what, like 9/10 baked or 8/9 baked or something.
I don't know if I would go that far. I would say it's probably similar ranking, maybe 80. Okay, 8 out of 10.
Okay, so Tom, how did you? I guess, did you have any expectations going into this? And then kind of what were your initial impressions?
I'm like I guess if you're Goldilocks and Andrea is the the bed is too small and Matthew is the bed is too big. I'm like right in the middle somewhere. I thought, I don't know if that analogy worked, but I thought
it was very good.
Keep going.
Thank you, Matt. I thought it was better than my expectations were not super high, except that I was hoping, I read the book and first of all, have any of you guys ever read the story, the novella, the book?
No.
Yeah, a long time ago.
I read it a long time ago.
It's very gritty, and I saw the Schwarzenegger version when I was young, and it was kind of fun as like a party movie. But I remember being like, "This is disappointing." They didn't really. It's Schwarzenegger vehicle, so they had to like make it grand and larger than life. But I was hoping this would be more like gritty and go back to the book, and it did in a lot of ways. But it was still very much trying to be an action movie. There were a couple things I found off-putting. Playing murder for laughs while there's a kid in the car with you just seemed kind of off. Maybe I wouldn't have felt that way before I was a parent. But and the ending I found kind of like unbelievable. I thought they were going for the ending that's in the book. At first, it looked like they were going that way, and then they kind of veered away from it, and I was a little disappointed by that. But
So the ending in the book, just to explain, is that he like hijacks a plane and crashes it into the network skyscraper,
which you couldn't really do in a movie these days anyway.
Yeah, and it's not set up to be a movie with that ending, so it's a lot of humor in it, great deal of humor in it, and it's kind of weird to end it. The tone doesn't match that ending.
True, but the original book was written by a guy who was fresh out of college, couldn't pay his bills, was like struggling to every time the baby would need like a shot because it was sick, he would like be like, where's the money going to come from? And he wrote this. You can tell where the idea came from. Like, what if you could just sacrifice your life to give your family a good life? And what if there was like a game show? Game show culture was like just starting then, but it was a big craze. And now it's like almost prescient that he's like, oh, you could go on this game show and risk your life. And I mean, there aren't game shows quite like that yet, but there kind of are. There's like the reality shows have gotten more popular. So I really was hoping it would be more like a real, like, what if we take reality TV a step further and make it really kind of brutal and scary. I was kind of hoping for that, and I didn't get that. So I guess my expectations shot me in the foot. But I did enjoy it. Like, I thought, well, this is better than the 80s version by quite a lot. I thought it was fun. I thought the action was pretty fun. I thought the humor was good in a lot of places. I thought it cracked along. It was a long movie, but it didn't feel long to me. It felt, all the stuff that happened, I was like, oh, this is really cool. There were some really goofy things in it that I kind of thought missed the tone of. I couldn't tell where the tone was trying to land, so I had a hard time. I was kind of off balance a bit.
Let me talk about that because I think that was I went into this with pretty low expectations just because I'd heard the reviews were pretty mixed. It wasn't really what I was looking for because it's sort of like a weird combination of a thriller and a comedy. Mm-hmm. And I feel like those are two genres that are really hard to combine because, a thriller, you're trying to ratchet up the tension as much as possible and really put the character through the ringer and really be, intense and scary and violent. And then in a comedy, obviously it's all, that tends to like deflate the tension or, and so I really found that the humor here just made the danger feel not real. And if the danger doesn't feel real in a thriller, it's kind of like, well, what's the point? I wanted it to be.
Well, explain how this is, I guess we can't really go off science fiction too much, but explain how something like Die Hard works, which is full of humor, but is still a thriller. I think you could probably name 5 or 6 examples of great movies that are thriller comedies. But Die Hard just popped into my head.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't call Die Hard a comedy. I mean, it's like it's a thriller with comic relief. Well, the thing is, like, there's like a kind of humor that exists within the reality of the story. Like where the character, the Bruce Willis character in Die Hard, just has a sharp sense of humor, but like you still believe in the danger. At least I do, like when he's walking on broken glass, you're like, oh my God, that's awful,
Right.
Whereas in this, like when he's jumps off a truck and it explodes and stuff, I don't feel like he's in any pain or like, it feels sort of cartoony.
I think the difference, I think the difference is that this movie's satire and I don't think Die Hard is. Like, I knew I was in, kind of a silly satirical movie, but, a movie that I thought made some very effective comments on our current world was when he goes to get to the disguise from William H. Macy, and his disguise is basically, here's a mustache. Like, it's like the worst disguise ever. He looks exactly the same. And I was like, okay, this movie is like not taking itself seriously. And so like, I didn't find like myself invested in the thriller aspect as much. Also, I think that this movie was borrowing a lot of its tone from the original movie, in the sense of like, this sort of dark reflection, dare I say, Black Mirror of our current world. And this idea that, everything on TV, a lot of things on TV are completely faked and it's all about ratings and money and power and, the same old story, but I still think it works. And then, I love that he goes to the guy, forget the character's name. And the guy's like, here's here's the secret information about the show, like how things are done. And here's the character cliches, and you're just a cliche and you're going to be killed in the great finale. And it's sort of recognizing that there is a plot structure to this, that he is just playing a part. And I think it was really a powerful comment on like how everything today is constructed as a sort of, as a, like a show. Everything is constructed as a way for us to present a certain reality to the world that may not be real or authentic.
Well, no, I totally agree that the movie seems most committed to the satirical. Like, it seems like that's what the filmmaker is most interested in and most sort of energetic about. Not as you say, like creating, well-developed characters whose pain feels real or anything like that. So I guess it just depends on what you're there for. I personally, I just wanted something darker. But like the scene where, there's a scene before the contest starts where Ben Richards, the main character, he meets with Killian, the producer, the Josh Brolin character. Mm-hmm. And Josh Brolin's like, and they've already told him he's the angriest man they've ever met.
Yeah.
And Josh Brolin's like, that right there, that's what's going to make you win. And I really wanted to see this guy who just like, he's just fighting for his life. He's fighting for his family. He's like ripped as hell. I just wanted to see him like go up against these hunters and just like his rage to just come out and for him to just like break them, that they're just like they're just collecting a paycheck and they think they're all hot shit. But when they go up against someone who's just like, is just putting it all on the line, I wanted him to spend like half this movie covered in blood. And that is just not what this movie is. It's sort of a goofy comedy satire.
And here's what right off the bat is sort of one of my problems with it is that, you're the angriest man we've ever had here. And I'm like, I don't buy that. I don't see that level of anger.
His answer when they tell him that is, that really pisses me off.
Yeah, it's just like there was nothing really, and I don't know if I think this, but it sort of crossed my mind that I was like, maybe Glenn Powell was miscast, because like, wasn't it last year where they were like, he's like the human embodiment of a capybara? And like, it's really hard. It's really hard to buy somebody who's been compared to a capybara to like the most angry guy in the world. I didn't buy the anger.
That was part of the reason why I went in with extremely low expectations, because Glenn Powell he just looks like the most unserious actor I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like he just has this constant smirk. Like he knows he's acting. You know he's acting. It's all a big goof, and I just never take him seriously in any of his roles.
See,
But it was like 5 minutes in there, just like, all right, I'm just gonna play the angry guy, and I'm like, all right, I'll roll with it. And I don't know, it kind of worked.
well, I
By
actually,
the way,
go ahead,
yeah.
go ahead, Matt.
No, this was a complete non sequitur, which I tend to do. Did you notice the new dollars had Schwarzenegger's
Oh
face
yes,
on it?
I love that. That was funny. I had a good laugh at that.
But
go ahead.
But I mean, just I don't know why, but the YouTube algorithm recently has just been throwing me scenes from The Fugitive, the Harrison Ford movie, and just like comparing that to this, it's like so much. I just watched like a 2-minute clip from that, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm so tense. Like, oh my god, he just barely escaped. Like, it feels so real. The danger feels so real, and that's just what I.
Well, I think it's a
more of that.
completely different movie than The Fugitive. I think Tom's comparison is actually better of a what is it called, Tom? See, I'm not good at remembering names. What was the movie you brought up with Bruce Willis?
Oh, Die Hard?
Oh, yeah.
Die Hard.
Yeah.
I think that's a more apt comparison because, yes, Die Hard has a lot of comedy in it. I think the disconnect for me is that Die Hard, 1, is a tighter script, and 2, the comedy is from dialogue, and there's no like physical or visual comedy, and there is quite a bit in Running Man, which I think that's the difference. So there's, the comedy is baked in.
It just seems like Glenn Powell never did anything in this movie. He was like, he just kept running into allies randomly who were kind of colorful and did stuff, and he was just kind of tagging along. Smirking, as Matt says.
All right, well, being that you are a successful script doctor, I'm really interested to hear what tweak you think would have been most important to get him to do stuff.
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm talking to Dave.
I'm
talking to you
okay.
too, but Dave, specifically
like,
because
we always...
talking
to me?
You're talking to me?
Specifically because we
you
always
think I'm
joke
funny?
about Dave being
Am I here to amuse you?
I'm here to amuse you?
I'm here to make you laugh like I'm some kind of a clown? No, that's how you tell a story. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, the movie I want to see would probably not be commercially successful. So, I mean, I sort of understand why, why this ended up. I mean, like I saw an interview with Edgar Wright where he said, like, oh, we knew we were never going to do the ending from the book because it's too dark. Like, no studio would ever go for it, But like I said, my version of this would be it's like The Fugitive crossed with a horror movie about the angriest guy ever,
who's not actually
putting
angry.
it all on the line for his family. I mean, I thought there were just way too many like characters. Like I would have combined some of the characters. Like I probably would have combined the William H. Macy character and the Michael Cera character into one. Like he toward the end he gets this like wealthy woman sidekick, and that thing like happened so fast.
Yeah, that was weird.
It came out of nowhere. Like, why is she there? And it's a major character introduced in the back half of Act 2, and I was like, whoa, what?
The one plot thing I would have liked, I mean, then this would be changing the novel, but like the one plot thing I wanted was like, there's just absolutely no logical reason for him to sign up. In the script as it exists, there's absolutely no logical reason for him to sign up for the Running Man. Like, it turns out his friend was going to offer him a job and everything. Like what it should have been, I think, is that like he, through his union organizing stuff, he has all these sort of like anti-government contacts. And one of them is like, dude, I have this bunker. Like, you could hide out there. If you were to do the Running Man, you could hide out there. It's full of food. They'll never find it. You would have a really, really good shot at winning. And he's like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And then like he gets there and they've put a suburb. They've like built a suburb over it. Like that would be the complication, But like if there was just like some, and his wife's like, don't do it. And he's like, no, I got a really good shot, like there just needed to be like he just needs to be smart.
Yes.
Like he never does anything smart.
I agree
in
with
the
that.
whole movie.
Yeah, he's never an active character. He's just running the entire time. He's reactive as opposed to active.
Well, it's not the active man.
But it's like, and also this is supposedly the most popular TV show in the world, and it's like he's never seen it before or thought about what he, you would think like everyone in this society would have thought, well, here's how I would survive the Running Man. That's like all anyone would talk about, and it's like it's never occurred to him before, even after he signed up for it, what he's going to do.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Good point.
I also felt like, was Lee Pace supposed to be the guy from season 1 who survived 29 days?
Yeah.
Okay, why is that? Like, that's just revealed at the end on the plane. And it's like, all you're revealing to me is that it's Lee Pace. He takes the mask off, and it's just, oh, it's Lee Pace.
He's like, oh,
but
it's you.
But it has no relation to the movie itself. And how do you not set that up?
Yeah, I was like, did I miss something?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so he takes off the mask and it's like, it's you. And it's like, wait, who are you?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I thought it was going to be Josh Brolin. I thought that's what they were setting up.
I also thought the girl should have been one of the Americanos, like, because that's what running.
We thought.
That's who I thought it was going to be.
Mercurio Rivera, who was on your podcast, Dave, and he goes, "Oh, wasn't she one of the characters on that show?" And I said, "I don't think she was."
No.
But that would have been a good twist. Yeah.
I think the reason he knew who Lee Pace was because Lee Pace was the star of The Running Man when he won it.
But we don't know that.
But I don't think it was set up well.
It wasn't set up at all.
I missed it the first time.
It was not. Actually, I just rewatched it again this morning because it's on streaming now.
Okay.
And I was waiting. I was looking for some clue, and there was none. It's literally just takes a mask off. Oh, it's Lee Pace.
It's Mrs. Yutani.
Yeah.
Aliens. What universe?
That's for listeners. That's a reference to our alien Earth panel. I did actually kind of like the part on the plane. There was just something kind of like, I don't know, a little bit more dramatic, and I don't know, just the tone got a little darker and more serious and more kind of ominous at that part.
And I did like all the little Stephen King teases throughout, Easter eggs, like the restaurant Bachman's, and they go to Derry. My favorite part is the crazy mother who laughs like Pennywise.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Oh yeah, the minute I heard that crazy laugh, I'm like, that's Pennywise.
Nice.
What did people think of? So what happens? So they can't have the plane crash into the skyscraper. So they have this like kind of weird
TikTok guy
sequence where the kind of conspiracy TikTok guy comes on and talks directly to the audience, and then it turns out that Ben Richards ejected from the plane and has now sort of, his family's still alive, and he's sort of now the kind of central figure in this like uprising, like popular violent uprising. Did anyone
that was,
did anyone like that?
No,
or
I didn't like it.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
No, I didn't like. I mean, it just sort of. It's like that cliche that lone hero saves the world, and I felt like they needed to end it on some kind of hopeful, positive note, and it was too rushed. It didn't fit. Didn't make sense. But
in that it was rushed, I felt like I think those two things were reversed. Like he sees the wife first, and then the next thing is we go to the studio, and the audience suddenly, erupts in violence with these rebels or insurrectionists. And I was like, I think they should have done the insurrection first, and then the last thing for hopefulness is he sees his wife. Whether she sees him, actually, maybe I think it might have been better if he was just watching her and the baby, and then that's what you end on. And he sees her, but she doesn't see him. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
rewriting this off the
No, but
top
I
of
think
my
that
head.
would work better is that he
Yeah.
can't come out of hiding, but he
Yeah.
knows his wife and kid are safe. That would have
Exactly.
been more affecting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if people stayed through the credits, but this had like a really frenetic credits sequence, like a really sort of like weirdly self-satisfied, energetic credits sequence that really made me think. I don't know if you guys know the meme where there's the guy on the podium at the Olympics and he's celebrating wildly and he's like pouring champagne on himself and screaming and all this stuff. And then in the last panel, you see that he's come in third place. He's like celebrating so wildly, even though he came in third place. That's what this movie kind of made me think of. It's like, you know, it's okay, but not great, but it seems to think it's like so awesome. Like everything about it just has this like attitude to it. So I don't know.
I thought
I appreciate the confidence, I guess.
I thought the credit scene seemed like we're starting a revolution here. Like we need this revolution in real life, and it seemed to almost be inciting violence against police officers, which I was like, yeah, what are they doing? Like,
no, it was inciting violence against network executives, which I'm 100% against. 100% for. Please, that was really satisfying for me personally, but that's a whole other issue.
The movie to me had a very like 90s or mid-aughts tone to it. It definitely felt like it was hearkening back to an early time of like ridiculous action films
and ridiculous game shows, which is very like 80s. Like they had the Solid Gold dancers on there when he first comes out, when the Coleman Domingo comes out, and I'm like, he was great. I loved him. He was fantastic.
I guess I wonder if they maybe just needed to lean into the comedy more, because it's sort of like, you know, like I said, it's in this awkward place where it's not thrilling, but it's also not that funny.
Yeah.
And I feel like they needed to kind of pick a direction and, you know, make it, you know, if you're going to make it that goofy, just go all the way and just make it really laugh out loud funny.
Yeah. Well, they already did that with the first Running Man in the 80s. And that's why I was kind of hoping they would go more like, just make this like real. Like, what if there really was a game show and you really had to do this? That's how the story was handled. But like you're saying, maybe that movie, you couldn't sell it to a studio.
Yeah. Well, maybe that'll get us into that'll come back in our discussion of The Mist. Mm-hmm. But why don't we move on to our next movie, The Long Walk. This is another one of the Bachman books. This is actually the first novel. I think it's the first novel Stephen King ever wrote. He wrote it as a college student. And again, it wasn't published until years later. And so the premise of this one is that it's like a totalitarian, like the United States has been taken over by some sort of military dictatorship run by a figure called the Major. And every year they have this sort of spectacle where 50 teenagers are selected by lottery to
all
walk,
boys
to walk as far as they can, and if they slow down or stop, they get gunned down, and whoever lasts the longest gets some huge prize. But it's, you know, everybody dies except the person who keeps walking the longest, just along a highway in Maine and in New England. So Tom, you said you've read this book, you said, right?
A long time ago, yes, but I did read the book.
So what were your expectations going into the movie?
Well, I didn't really enjoy the book when I was young and read it. I did enjoy a lot of King, but obviously, like you said, it was early King, and I found it very brutal and kind of hard to read. And this movie, I don't like brutality in movies. I think I said that when we were watching the Van Damme movies. I can't stand like really gory violence. I didn't find the violence here off-putting for some reason. I don't really know why. I thought it was
because it is pretty graphic. This is a pretty graphic movie.
It's graphic, but for some reason
it's turn away.
I think because it's like it's all like boys of a certain age. They're you know, kind of old enough to know better. There was no like little kids in it, like little like 7-year-olds or anything. It just seemed more, and I've been that age, and it just seemed more like, okay, this isn't going to horrify me as much as like a mom and her kid getting brutally murdered. But and also because it all fit into the story really well. It was like you could see where everything was going, and nothing was like really that when you knew it was coming when everything happened. You're like, oh, this guy's about to get it. And I actually could shut my eyes before it happened. So which I did. I didn't want to watch through, people's brains flying out or anything. So I don't know. I found the movie really well written. I thought, I was trying to remember like if it stuck pretty close to the book, and I think it did. I found it was surprisingly engaging to me that you could watch a movie. The premise is so simple, right? That there's a number of adolescent boys and they're all going to walk at 4 miles an hour or 3.4 miles an hour or whatever it was until they fall down. And when they fall down, they're going to get shot. And then if they get 3 warnings, and at the end of after the 3rd warning, they get shot, and you're going to see how long they can go. If they can go all the way from, I feel like it was like Maine to Boston, or maybe it was northern Maine to Portland or something. I don't remember from the book, but I think it was probably Portland. But either way, they're just like walking and walking, and you'd think that would sound boring, but it's not. It's like there's so much cool character development in it. There's so much cool interplay between the different characters, the different personality types, and how each one approaches this. And then there's a really strong theme that pulls you all the way through the movie and ultimately ends up being sort of depressing. I didn't like that, but I thought this was one of the strongest King adaptations I've ever watched on film. So that was my read on it.
I guess when you say there's a theme or a depressing theme, what did you see as the theme?
Well, I thought the theme was very uplifting until at the end, then it switched and got depressing. But the theme that I saw was that, yes, life is brutal, and there's a lot of brutal things that are going to happen, but you can't focus on that long view or you'll go crazy. You have to focus down onto the moment and focus on like love. Basically, you have to choose love. You have to choose the beauty and love, and you have to focus on the good things in life, no matter that there's a lot of bad things too. I thought I was like, that was giving me like a thrill listening to people say that in different ways, or people say the opposite of that, and people say the positive of that, and see the main character struggle and be like, I want to feel that way, but I don't. And that, I feel like that's so much where most of us live, is in that I want to live that way, but I don't. And that felt so good to me, that whole thing. And you're thinking this kid's going to get convinced by the end that, yes, I'm going to choose love. And he did. Well, he does actually. He does. He says, look, you're able to choose love. I'm not. So I'm going to let you live, and I'm going to die. And he does choose love. But then the guy who convinced him of that can't. And says,
let me just explain. So that we have sort of 2 main characters, Ray and Peter. Is that the right names?
Yes,
I think so.
yeah.
I think so.
And so like, they're in competition with each other, and only one of them can survive. But this long walk is such an intense bonding experience that, in just a matter of a day or 2 or 3, I think it's actually, or maybe like 5. It's a little unrealistic, but in just a short period of time, they just become like the best friends ever. And so what Tom's alluding to there is that Peter has said, he says something about how he can't experience love in the same way that Ray can because of his childhood or something. I'm not.
Well, they see. I think it's a mother and daughter eating like having like a picnic on the roadside, watching them, and he's like, you see them, I don't remember his exact words, but he's like, they're vultures, they're just here to watch us die. And the other guy's like, I don't see that. Peter says, I don't see that. He's like, I see a family that loves each other, and they're hanging out. And then he's like, see, he's like, that's what makes us different. You see the good in things and I don't. And I really like your comment, Tom, where you say that, the one character who supposedly can see love in everyone and the one character supposedly can't, their roles kind of reverse at the end, which I thought was really affecting, actually.
Yes. So Matt, you sounds like you liked the movie overall.
Yeah, it surprised me because I remember, I read the story a long time ago, and I remember, like Tom, I was kind of brutalized by it. Like I think when you read something, I was probably like 13, 14. When you read something that young, like you don't really have the kind of emotional filters that you do when you get older. So like things really affect you, and it affected me at least in a way that was kind of hard. And so watching this, I was like, oh, great. I'm going to watch a movie where everybody is murdered. And it was brutal. And it reminded me a lot of kind of war pictures. I'm thinking of what's the Spielberg one where they go to rescue the
Saving Private Ryan.
Thank you. Saving Private Ryan, where it's like, yeah, they're all going to die, or most of them are going to die. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch this, but I found it really moving and affecting and kind of spiritual towards the end. Very, very powerful metaphor for life. Like we just have to keep on walking. You could give up, you could stop, but then you're dead. The only thing you can do is keep going. And it's very existentialist in a way. It's like, all you have is each other along the way, and all we have are the choices that we make now and how we choose to face the now. And I thought that was a really powerful message. I did find it really hard to watch, like that the camera didn't turn away from people getting shot or run over by tanks. They just showed that. And at first I was kind of repulsed by it, but I realized that the film is trying to say, like, this is life, like not literally, but this is the life you live. Like people are just dropping like flies around you. The longer you walk, the longer you live, the more people you're going to see die. And that to me I found it really affecting. I did think it was a little long. Like kind of the middle sort of sagged a bit, but overall, like, I was like really with the characters, especially at the end. And, you know that there's going to be a stupid one that's going to die. And then you're going to, like, you see people that, like, they get injuries on their foot, or they get diarrhea, or they get, something horrible happens. And it's just, I found it really affecting. And then I forget the character's name. Was it Barkovich, who was like, really, really trying hard to be liked by the other guys, because he realized that he wasn't liked, and he realized that he was an asshole and knew it, and realized it as he's walking, but realized
that was really cool. That was cool how he had that awakening. It was sad that he couldn't do anything with it, but I loved that he just starts out as this complete irredeemable jerk, and then you see him come face to face with that and be like, I can't be this way.
I can't. Yeah. And it, again, it's a very powerful metaphor for someone's life journey. It's like, you start off as, maybe some of us start off as like arrogant or assholes or selfish. And then you grow up and you get wiser, and then you look back and you're like, oh shit, why did I do that? I should never have done that. That's not who I am. And it's all like compressed into several days. And, I liked it. I know some people had problems with this. I was overhearing some people talking recently about it, and they didn't like it so much. But I think of all the ones we watched, this to me, it was my favorite.
Well, I want to get Andrea in here. Yeah. So Andrea, what'd you think of Long Walk?
Well, I knew nothing about it. So I came into it totally fresh, and it's going. And I was like, really, this is all it's going to be, is just people talking. And suddenly I was completely riveted, and I never thought I could be that engaged by a movie that's basically just people walking and talking. I put down my phone, which these days is really hard to do, and could not look away. I was also, I thought they were going to turn the camera away on the violence. And that first kill was so shocking. But I felt like it's one of those things where you can't look away, not only because it's riveting, but also because you need to bear witness to what's going on. Right. And this is me falling into the world of this movie, which is this dystopian horror, and almost becoming part of the story, where it's like, don't look away. This is what's going on. And I agree with what everybody else said, the themes, the friendship. And yeah, I mean, every death is so painful. And especially the four main friends who call themselves the four musketeers. Yeah.
The musketeers, yeah.
And then, everyone else. And Barkovich was really hard because you realize somewhere, for me, he's mentally ill, clearly. Because there's parts where he's like slapping himself because he can't stop, alienating people. And then that scene with Ray where he's like, "You'll be my friend, right? You'll be my friend." And it was like, gut wrenching. And then he essentially commits suicide. Like he takes a spoon and he shoves it in his throat.
Ugh,
and it's just so painful. But yeah, I really liked it quite a lot. I really liked it. It felt real. It was painful. It was raw. Yeah, I thought it was great.
Yeah. Well, I had read the book, and I liked the book when I read it. So, and this is, from what I remember, very faithful to the book. I mean, just the dialogue felt like it had been taken directly from the book and not adapted at all. I mean, I didn't go back and check, but that's how it felt to me. I kind of wish they had adapted the dialogue somewhat, because I felt like all the characters kind of sounded like Stephen King. It was like 50 Stephen King clones all like talking to each other. But that was really my only real issue with the movie. I thought it was really good. I mean, I thought the ending. So what happens at the end is that Peter tries to sacrifice himself for Ray, and then Ray kind of like tricks him and sacrifices himself for Peter, and then so Peter ends up being the last survivor, and they get a wish when the winner gets their wishes granted, and Ray has told Peter, "Oh, if I win, my wish is going to be I get a carbine so I can use it to kill the Major." Because in revenge for his father having been, executed as a dissident. And so by the end, the two boys have grown so close that then Peter executes Ray's plan, and he asks for a carbine and uses it to kill the Major. And then kind of walks off down the street, in what at least I took to be some sort of like dream sequence or fantasy.
I was
or
something.
Say,
what did you think that meant? Because my thought was, is he dead and we just didn't see him get shot? Because he turns around, there's nobody else on the street behind him. All the tanks are gone.
I don't think he was dead. I think he actually gets to walk away, but to what? I think the metaphor was he's got nothing to look forward to now. His whole life, his whole future is just absolutely bleak and brown and, no good.
I thought like what happened is that he killed the Major and then he got gunned down, and we're seeing him like walking off into the afterlife.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. Yeah.
And that he's just still walking, like,
still walking
in his head.
Yeah. But I kind of like the fact that it was a little obscure. Like you have to kind of put your own.
I like that too.
Oh.
Yeah, I did like that too. Apparently, I was reading on Wikipedia that they shot an alternate ending. Instead of killing the Major, Peter drops the rifle at his side and continues walking, still disillusioned from his wish. Intertitles reveal that he begins mailing 3 envelopes filled with cash each month, one apiece to Hank's widow, Ray's mother, and Art's grandmother, the last of whom also receives Art's rosary and cross, which he had given to Ray before deciding to stop. So I'm glad they didn't show that, actually.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Yeah.
I think this movie had a very strong man's search for meaning vibe, the Viktor Frankl book.
Yeah.
The whole thing of, look, you're put in this horrible situation and it's up to you. You have no choice to get out of it, but how you act in the situation is the only thing you do control, and that's going to govern your experience. And I thought that was, I don't know. I felt like that was
Camus' myth of Sisyphus. It's like that's what they're doing essentially.
It kind of occurred to me that it's thematically, it sort of reminded me of Never Let Me Go, where the theme is you have to live in the now because our lives are so short. I don't know if I'm off on that, but that's kind of it occurred to me.
I don't think you are. I think it echoes a lot of, fiction that deals with that concept. And, I also thought that
actually, let me jump in just specifically on Never Let Me Go. If it's a novel by Kazuo Ishiguro where there are these clones and they've been like bred to provide organ transplants, and they, when they reach a certain age, they have to check in to the hospital or whatever to have their organs harvested, and they don't resist.
Mm-hmm.
They just kind of go along with what their society expects them to do.
Yeah.
So I could kind of see that same sort of like
fatalism.
Fatalism and inevitability and tragedy and
they're trapped. They're trapped
like
in their culture and their society, and they don't see a way out. In a way that most of us are trapped within capitalism. With it, we have to struggle, trapped within these human bodies that get sick and die.
And we're told that these boys all volunteered for this, but
like, everybody
for
volunteers.
Whatever.
Like no one doesn't volunteer, right? They did say that in the movie.
They do. So we all do this. Everybody volunteers.
We all volunteer. Well, if everyone volunteers, then it's not voluntary.
Yeah.
I would just want to say quickly that I thought the setting was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I found it extremely haunting that they're on these like pretty much like really just open farmland and passing the occasional person, and then at the end or near the end when they approach, I guess you said, Tom, is Portland, and there's all these people just cheering. I found that really haunting. And then I don't know if you guys remember when they start singing America the Beautiful.
Yeah.
And it gave me like chills, and not like the good kind. Like it was extremely haunting. And I just found it just really dark and, satirical in the way that maybe The Running Man wasn't. Like it was a commentary on, jingoism and patriotism, and like maybe we're not looking at certain things the right way. It was very much, kind of how, people were conscripted and they go to war and they fight, and is it a righteous war? Is it not a righteous war? Things like that. I don't know. But
King said, this was written around the Vietnam draft.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a lot of that in there.
Yeah. He's even Ray is wearing a hat that a lot of soldiers used to wear in the jungles of Vietnam, like that floppy hat. There's sort of a visual connection there to war for me.
And they're all wearing kind of military canteens and dog tags.
Yeah.
Well, King wrote it in
65?
70. Oh, was it 65?
I think it was 65, 67 or 66, 67.
Okay.
I don't know. I looked it up because I was so...
66, 67 is what I have.
Did you just say 6'7"? Because if my kids hear this.
Oh, God. Please don't.
I liked it. It was dark, which is, I guess, what I like. But so it sounds like you guys are mostly there with me. Did anyone? Like I said, like really, my only complaint was like I thought the dialogue was a little bit overmannered. It's cool, but it doesn't really like. It's almost like watching a stage play.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the it doesn't
very
take
much
advantage of the visual medium.
Yeah,
the way that like Raiders of the Lost Ark or something does. I feel like you might as well just read the novel.
It could be a radio play and work just as well.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that,
I think my only complaint was like the mom, what was her name? Judy Greer. Like I just thought like she was really one note, and I get it. It's like she didn't really have a lot of screen time, and she's a good actor. Like I think she's a great actor. But I just didn't think that they really did enough. She was just like, "Oh, I love you, my son. Don't die. And she just cried, and I was like, "All right, they could do a little more there."
Man, that scene though, where she's standing by the side of the road and he's running to her,
and he ran back.
My heart was in my throat. Part.
No,
she's like, go, just go, and he's like, "Mom, I'm sorry." She's like, "Never mind, no, go."
Yeah, and his friend saves him.
and they got
Yeah.
a gun to his head and all that. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Uh-huh.
So this is kind of the tone, the kind of movie the kind of adaptation I was hoping for with The Running Man, because they've not done one of those yet. And if you're curious, I looked up while we were talking. The Running Man grossed somewhere between $68 and $69 million worldwide.
The current one.
Yeah, the current one, and this grossed around 50 million. So they could have had 20 million more dollars with this if they'd made it, like, put more jokes in it.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty good haul for a movie that seems to be not as expensive as The Running Man.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Definitely,
It reminds me of that movie, what was it called? Deep Water or Open Water, about the couple who was snorkeling and they drown. They get left
there. They get left
behind on a snorkeling trip in the Caribbean. And
I definitely did not watch that.
You didn't? Oh, I watched that, and I was fascinated by it because it was made for something like, I don't know, $1 million or $500,000 or $100,000 or something like that, and it grossed like 30 million. And just a super cheap movie to make, just like this one was. It's just like really good drama. So a lot of people were
I thought you were going to say that this made like 8 million or something. So I'm gratified that it made 50 million. Yeah, I mean, so maybe we'll get more darker Stephen King adaptations in the future. But let's move on to our next movie. So this is The Dead Zone from 1983, directed by David Cronenberg, starring Christopher Walken. So the premise here is that there's a guy, and he's a teacher. He's engaged to be married, and he's in a car accident, and he wakes up after 5 years in a coma to find that his fiance has married somebody else and now has a baby. And now when he touches people, he gets sort of like psychic visions of their past, present, or future. So Andrea, expectations going into The Dead Zone?
I've seen this movie before multiple times.
Okay.
And I love it, and I've always loved it. It's serious, it's real, and even 30, 40, don't ask me to do the math, but whatever, how many decades it's been, it's still relevant, very relevant, and it's heartbreaking. And this is the most un-Christopher Walken movie ever. And yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking to me, and I always found it very real and very affecting. I really don't have much criticism for it, other than I really like it. I've always liked it. That's it. Sorry.
Yeah. I'll say, I mean, I watched this, I remember distinctly, I watched this at my grandmother's house. I was just flipping through the channels and it came on and I watched it and I was like, this is great. I thought I had seen most of the movie. It turned out rewatching it, I had seen pretty much just the end. I came in around the time that he has the vision of the kids drowning, like playing hockey and drowning, which it turns out is actually, the last, 25 minutes of the movie or something. But it's really good. Yeah, I like this movie. It's like the plot is a little bit episodic.
Yes,
but,
it is very episodic. I was just thinking that.
I never saw the whole thing about hunting the serial killer, which was fine. But to me, not as engaging as the stuff that comes afterward.
See, that's one of the images that always sticks in my head from this movie is the guy killing himself in the bath with the scissors. Like, it's horrifying.
That's apparently not King. That's apparently Cronenberg.
Oh, really? Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, if you think about Cronenberg's fascination with metal intersecting with flesh, that is...
Actually, that guy. So it turns out that there's this like deputy who's the serial killer, and Christopher Walken uses his powers to catch him. And so that character, the deputy, is an actor that David Cronenberg wanted to play Johnny, the main character, and the studio insisted on a better known actor. So that's how they ended up with Christopher Walken. But yeah, I don't know. Let's get Matt in here. Matt, what'd you think of The Dead Zone?
So I had not seen it. Somehow missed this or I might have seen snippets of it. When I heard of the film The Dead Zone and saw Christopher Walken and it's the 80s, I expected something like really terrifying. And I remember he was also in a science fiction movie in the 80s called Brainstorm. And that was really intense. And somehow I sort of expected, I don't know, I expected more bodies, I guess, because it's called The Dead Zone. But I enjoyed it. I think that it was, it had a good story and had a good plot. And I found it affecting where he's, you know, has the love of his life. And then he's in a coma for 5 years and he wakes up and she's like, well, I moved on. And sort of reminded me of Castaway, that famous
yeah, exactly.
I 100%.
And I found that very affecting. And I also liked that they didn't just write her off. Like she kept coming back. And like, I like that they sat with that emotion for a little while. They didn't just,
well, and they didn't like try to turn her into a villain, you know, like you feel really bad for her.
Yeah.
You know, and for him, you know.
And and as soon as like, okay, I like the movie, but you know, and we've spoken about this before in our watch of a lot of 80s movies, is that there's a certain type of pacing with the 80s movies. And I don't know if it's just my brain just works faster now because that's the way the world is. But this movie felt really slow paced until Martin Sheen comes in. And then once Martin Sheen comes in, it like really picked up for me. Because Martin Sheen just comes in with all this energy. And I hate to say it, but he was extremely Trump-like. He was just like this super populist and was all bluster and nothing behind it. And they were like, oh, and then I just love that line where Christopher Walken is tutoring the guy's son, and the guy says to him, oh no, we can't let this guy win. You know, he's a danger. We can't let, he's like, but you were just friends with him. He's like, well, I have to hedge my bets, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, that was pretty well done. Pretty prescient for 83. I mean, I guess there are assholes in every generation. And I thought to myself, oh, he's gonna shake Martin Sheen's hand and see something. And of course that did happen, but they cleverly avoided it early on by, instead of shaking his hand, he hands him like a button.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, a campaign button. And I was like, okay, that was slick. Like they handled that in a way that I thought was like, if you're not paying attention, you might not have noticed. And, you know, there were certain things that I thought today might not go over as well. Like the Christopher Walken, who's a middle-aged man being alone with a boy and tutoring him and then establishing what seems to be a kind of paternal relationship with the boy, like hugging him. And I was like, yeah, I don't like, that's something that was probably normal or normalized in the 80s, whereas today people are very paranoid about stuff like that. So I was like, okay, you know, I appreciate that they can show this relationship without saying, oh, he's a pedophile because he's hugging the boy. It's like, no, he just has genuine affection for this kid. And especially when he sees the premonition that the boy's going to die. And then it's like, you know, you have to stop it. And yeah, I mean, I thought it was well done. And I thought it ended, you know, in a place that I thought was satisfying. Yeah. My only complaint, I think, was that it felt a little slow by today's standards. But overall, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think the ending of this is brilliant.
Yes.
And I mean, Tom mentioned that Stephen King's endings are, you know, at best, or at least, you know,
they
sort of hit or miss.
Criticized a lot, but this one, I agree. This one is a fantastic.
And I agree with it sometimes that he has like these floppy endings. But
I agree with
this one,
that a lot.
Is this the ending in the book or the novella?
Yeah.
Okay. No,
yeah.
It's the perfect ending. It's the correct ending to it. No happy ending.
So I guess I'll just explain. Yes. So Martin Sheen is this local politician who, you know, has his eye on one day ascending to the presidency. And when Christopher Walken shakes his hand, Christopher Walken has this vision that one day this politician is going to start World War III, like launch a nuclear attack totally unnecessarily. And so he plots to assassinate him at a future rally. But then when he goes to shoot him, Martin Sheen grabs the baby, from Christopher Walken's ex-fiance, grabs the baby and holds it up to shield himself. So Christopher Walken can't kill him. But then obviously this derails his political career when photos get out of him shielding himself behind a baby. I think it's a fantastic ending. Yeah. Tom, is there anything else you want to say about The Dead Zone?
It's one of my favorite movies. I mean, it's a great book too. If you've not read the book, it's very long, and you're in for a treat. But it's not horror, It's very much kind of supernatural, kind of just like modern day fantasy, with a really cool theme. I think the theme is amazing. That he's like, I read something about like, oh, it's the old story of would you kill Hitler? And I'm like, I think the people on the internet who wrote that are thinking that was an old story back then when he wrote it. But I think he maybe popularized that idea. I think he was the one who kind of was like, well, think about this. Would you kill Hitler? I don't think he's the first person to ever think that, but I certainly think he popularized that idea. And then he goes forward to, I love people. I've got to do this, even though I don't want to kill someone. I've got to do it in this case. And then when it comes right down to it, it's like, well, okay, well, would you kill your ex-fiance's baby to stop World War III? And it's like, no, he wouldn't. He can't do that, which I think is really cool. It's a really cool like extension of that question. And then it winds up being okay anyway, because like you said, the baby winds up as a human shield. Which he gets clarified by when Greg Stillson runs over to him and grabs his hands, like, who sent you? And he gets this flash of premonition showing that Greg Stillson's going to kill himself because his career is ruined because of what he just did. And he smiles and he says, it's over, you're finished. And then he dies. But I love that. I just love this whole book. I love the way they did the movie. It turns out, kind of cool piece of trivia I found out, Christopher Walken, you pointed out it's the least Christopher Walken role. He was playing a character in this role. When he got a little older, people just loved the guy so much, and he became this cultural icon that he got cast to play himself, which I think any actor would be like, okay, fine, I'll just play myself, and you're going to give me a pile of money, that's fine. But back when he was young, he actually like played this character so well, and it's so heartrending. That scene you talked about where he hugs the kid, you can feel his heart breaking there, because he's seeing his ex-fiance and her new husband, and they have to chit chat and make small talk. And then the minute the door closes, he just breaks down. And the boy it's so affecting that the boy comes up and is like, Johnny, what's wrong? Are you okay? And he's like, tries to shoo him away. And then he grabs him and pulls him to himself and hugs him, and he's sobbing. It's just such an affecting scene. And the shots where he's having the premonitions and Christopher Walken has this wonderful, like, shocked look on his face. I found out that off camera, Cronenberg was firing a .357 Magnum not far away from Walken, so that Walken's shock would look real when he sees the visions, and you see his face just go into absolute shock. So that was really cool. And I don't know, just such a cool book. The movie follows the book in a cool way. There was a criticism when the movie first came out that, it cut so much out. Well, I think that's why they made it into a miniseries, and a lot of these longer novels make a better miniseries. Yeah. But I've not seen the miniseries, and I don't really care to, because this movie just, even though it has to slice a lot out, it did it in such a fantastic way and created such a great movie that I don't need to see another adaptation of it. This is the adaptation, in my view, of this book.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the plot is really packed, and it's really striking to me to think of just how much it makes you care about, like, his relationship with his fiance and this relationship with this boy he's tutoring, given what a short amount of screen time there must be to devote to those relationships, but they just establish them so well, so quickly.
Yeah, and I love it was filmed in Ontario, and it looked just like Maine, and I love that his dad's house is so kind of grubby and lived in. It doesn't look like something off of a big budget movie. It just looks like they just went and got a real house and filmed in it.
I also love that the whole thing is like perpetual winter. It is never not freezing cold and covered with slush and snow. The
Right,
entire
yeah.
movie.
Well, it's Maine.
Well, yeah, but Maine has summer.
Well,
Beautiful summers.
We have
Like 3 days
have-
of summer
we have
up
two
there.
That's not true.
We have winter and the 4th of July.
I've been in there in summer and in fall, and it's been beautiful both times.
When I lived in Maine, I heard people joke there's 2 seasons in Maine. For 10 months out of the year, it's snow season, and then 2 months out of the year, it's mud season.
Yeah, mud season or bug season. Yeah, it's very cold in Maine. I used to say summer in Maine is like a Mack truck full of flowers just crashed into your town, and then it's over. People are stumbling around outside. No one knows what to wear. Everyone looks shell shocked. But no, I think this book is fantastic. I think the movie is fantastic. They did such a great job with it. I know you guys. I think you talked about Firestarter in another panel. I think Dave, you said you've talked extensively.
No,
about
we're going to be talking about it in part 2.
Oh, fantastic! Because very similar.
I've never
movies.
seen it.
You're in for a treat. Very similar movies in terms of let's take somebody ordinary and give them a power that they can't come to terms with. Very similar stories, but yeah, I have zero bad things to say about this movie. I love the scene. I love how the father of the kid who goes through the ice is just like, so he's not like just this jerk character. He's like he wants his kid to do well. He wants his kid to be a good human being, and he's trying to bring him out of his shell, but he's just inept. And Christopher Walken is hired as like this tutor to come in and help the kid, and it turns out the kid is just brilliant and just wants to read books and write and a man after Christopher Walken's own heart. But the father takes it a step too far and like tries to force him to go to this hockey thing. And then the father, that scene afterward, after the kids drown, but the son lives, when the father is just kind of sitting there with the phone ringing, Christopher Walken calling him to try to figure out, did the kid live? And the father just won't answer the phone because you can tell he's just like, I should have friggin' listened. Fantastic, just fantastic. So many fun, fantastic moments. Such a tragedy, such a great movie. The whole thing, I think.
Yeah, I really liked it. And I mean, I'll just say, you described it as like fantasy or supernatural or whatever. The reason we're talking about it on this panel is because mental powers have a long pedigree in science fiction, even though they have no scientific basis whatsoever. But,
Well, on that note, one other thing I wanted to mention is the title, The Dead Zone, is not described in the movie the same way it is in the book. In the movie, it's, how do they describe it in the movie? The Dead Zone.
He can't see parts of the future. Is like
because
he
he can change it.
It's sort of like in Dune where he can't see certain things.
That's
because
right.
he
like
can
the
change
valleys.
it.
Yeah,
That's
because
that's
he can.
what it means.
That was the dead zone there, and I had to look this up. I can't credit my memory for giving me this, but in the book, the dead zone comes from the idea that you only use 10% of your brain, and the other 90% is dormant. And then when he gets hit by the truck, he goes into a coma, and his brain has to rewire itself through the dead zone of his brain, which is where ESP comes from, and that is based off of this guy. I'm not remembering his name now, but Johnny is based off of this psychic who was big in the 60s, who fell off a ladder, hit his head, went in a coma, and when he came out, he claimed to have ESP, and he was debunked by all these other. He was debunked by these debunker guys, magicians, and so forth. But he claimed that that's what happened, that his brain rewired itself through the dead zone of his mind. And so that's where the book comes from. Now that's been debunked too, that we only use 10% of our brains. But to that, I just say, if you've ever been to a Walmart parking lot, that's not true.
But yeah, so if anyone was wondering why we're talking about the dead zone in our science fiction movie, it's because, well, it's more science fiction than, ghosts or stuff like that.
Yeah, but can you categorize dystopian as science fiction? Because there's no real science.
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go.
Hands off.
No, I mean, I don't know. Science fiction encompasses a bunch of different story types that have as much to do with tradition as any kind of rigorous definition. So yeah, dystopian and mental powers both fall into that kind of bucket.
So this is a complete, again, here I go with the non sequitur. The boy in his room, when he's on the computer, he has a record player next to him, and it has an album. Do you guys know A Flock of Seagulls? Do you remember that band?
Of course.
Cool.
Yeah,
Where do you
he
think
has
we're
that
from?
record on the record player.
Who are you?
What do you think we are, young?
Yeah. Anyway, it's a great album, and I just thought it was cool that it was in the movie. And I think he has some Choose Your Own Adventure books on the desk too.
Oh, does he?
Classic.
Or something. Yeah, it's hard to tell, but I think it was.
That's fantastic.
I really the whole movie there. He's reading Edgar Allan Poe. Did you notice the Raven,
the
and
Raven.
then
Yeah.
something
Yes.
else? He quotes some other Poe stuff. And I love how in 1983 you can just get on a bus with a rifle, no problem.
Right.
It's in a bag. Come
yeah,
on.
well,
right.
what else could it be?
Right.
All right. Well, let's move on to our next and final movie, The Mist, 2007. So yeah, this is directed by Frank Darabont, who also directed The Green Mile and The Shawshank Redemption. And yeah, it was based on a Stephen King piece, novella or novelette or something that was in, as I mentioned, it was in Skeleton Crew, published 1985. So the premise here is that there is a guy, and yeah, he lives in a small town in Maine, and there's a big storm. Tree goes through his window, and so he leaves his wife at the house while he and his young son go to the supermarket to pick up some supplies. And while they're at the supermarket, this weird mist rolls into town, and there are weird monsters in the mist. And so they're all trapped, and a whole bunch of people from the town are all trapped in the supermarket, and they can't go out into the mist because the monsters will get them. So how about Andrea? Expectations or initial impressions of The Mist?
Well, as you guys know, I mixed this up with The Fog, the movie from the early 80s. So
Which is
I've always,
horrifying.
yes, it is terrifying. So, but I kind of thought it was going to be like that, with scariness coming out of the mist. And this,
Wait, what do you mean? There is scariness coming out of the mist.
well, here's the problem. It wasn't that scary. I wasn't scared. And this was the movie I had the most problems with. For a variety of reasons, most of them being, how are these people so completely incompetent? Like I could have, they're putting bags up in front, the whole window, the whole front of the store is all glass, like every grocery store. So they're like, we have to cover up the glass or they're going to get in. Fair. But then they only cover it up with these, giant bags of dog food or whatever. They only cover it up halfway. Like there's the whole rest of the wall. Why are you not covering that? And then they put lights in the windows.
Well, then the monsters wouldn't be able to break through the
exactly.
glass and
It's
get
a
in if they did
ridiculous
that.
plot thing. I also could have found so many other things in that store to put up against those windows that they wouldn't have got out of, because all of the shelves are metal. How do you not put that? How do you not rip those things out, put them in front of the window? And as far as, covering up the window just with the dog food halfway, the rest of the movie, and I'm watching for it because I'm like, what is going on here? These people are stupid. There's so many other giant pallets of giant bags of dog food that they could have done this with. So yeah, I was a little annoyed by that. I was a little annoyed by how these people are like, let's put the lamps in the window. Like, do you not know that that's like putting a sign up that says, we're here. It was, and let's see what other things. I mean, it was just so many, everybody's completely incompetent, making bad decisions. And yeah, I know they're under stress, but look, as somebody who spent most of my career under a great deal of stress, you figure out how to fix shit, especially when it's your life on the line. So I was very fucking frustrated.
Yeah, if you're just looking for examples of characters being stupid, I'll just list one more. Is so like a guy runs into the store with his face covered in blood, saying something in the mist got John Lee or whatever, And then another guy's like, I'm getting out of here, and runs out to his car and gets enveloped by the mist and screams and is never heard from again. And then after that, people are like, it's probably fine. There's like a whole contingent of people who are like, there's nothing out there. What are you guys talking about?
Yeah.
So that was, I agree with you. The movie had a problem with characters. I mean, and this is my big thing that I always complain about in survival horror, is that in survival horror, I do not want to see stupid people.
Exactly.
I don't want to see any stupid people anywhere. It's not enjoyable for me to see stupid people in survival horror. I want only smart people.
And it's just like, the main character is not smart either. There's literally not one person who's smart in this movie. Not one. And then the crazy religious lady, and like, okay, great. There's a crazy religious lady, who's just, preaching brimstone and fire. And then suddenly, because somebody gets killed, half the store goes, not more than half the store, like 40 people in the store, most of the people in the store suddenly become crazy god
cultists.
People. Yeah, like Pentecostal.
Overnight. Not even.
The world is ending. We must sacrifice people to the gods for it. And I'm just like, what is happening? Like, one person fine, maybe somebody else. And I we've all talked about spending time in Maine. I don't think, and maybe Tom, you can speak to this, there's like that level of religious fanaticism there. Is there like that level that people would just go?
I think what you're seeing is something that was done very well in the book, in book form, compressed to fit into a 90-minute movie. And I think you'll see that fail even worse when we watch Maximum Overdrive next episode. But no, I don't think it's so much. I think what King was doing is saying, look, if things got really crazy, people would slide again to where we were in the Middle Ages or during the Salem witch trials or so forth. It would backslide. And he does that very well on the page, and it doesn't come across well convincingly in the movie. But because I've read it, I'm going to have to recuse myself from this because I've read the book, because I grew up basically in that environment that the movie is about. I just like cheer the whole movie on, and I just love the whole thing. But no, you're right. I mean, that part is unconvincing, and there are a lot of stupid people in the movie, and that's not really what I focus on so much. But you're right.
I mean, I think the plot is totally solid, and I mean, just the idea that like all this like mind-bending stuff is happening, and people get freaked out and are like, "Oh, the military caused this to happen. Let's like throw him to the monsters." Like all that stuff. I think in principle is totally fine, I guess, which is what Tom is saying. It's just like the what would you say, like the emotions, or like, it's just like amplified way too much in this movie. It needs to be toned down by like 80%, and then it would be fine, at least for me. But it's just all too like histrionic too quickly. But I want to get Matt in here too. So Matt, what'd you think of The Mist?
So I think there's a lot of parallels here between this and The Long Walk, in the sense that you have people in a dire situation and what they do under extreme pressure. And then I think like The Long Walk handled it much better, because it's like, some people break down and some people can't handle it, and some people do handle it, and some people are clever about it. I agree with you. I didn't think anyone was clever. The movie just felt stupid to me. I never was scared. Mm-hmm. I think the only moment that was truly scary for me was when they go into like the back garage, I forgot whatever they called it, the storeroom or whatever, and then like the tentacles come through and grab the guy's leg and pull him out, and I'm like, that's genuinely creepy. But then then you see all these like insects coming in, and they're just doing like these stupid things, like, let's set them on fire and set ourselves on fire at the same time, and let's put all the lights on, like you said, Andrea, like let's put the dog food up in the window, and like it just got stupid, and I didn't really I wasn't rooting for anyone, and I just thought, whereas like I watched this before The Long Walk, but The Long Walk, I think, got very philosophical, especially towards the middle half and towards the end, whereas this movie never really did. It just was like, there are these alien creatures and we have to survive, and people are just being really horrible to each other, which I think there would be some people who would do that, but I think there would also be some people who would very much not do that and very much try to be helpful. And I think this movie just completely went the other way and was like, no, everyone's going to be awful to each other. Humanity's just awful. And then I really found the ending painful. And I get that the director, I don't know. I didn't read the book, so I don't know how it ends in the book, but I found that, and I don't think the book ends that way. I think it
doesn't. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Let me just explain. So they the main character and his son and a bunch of people who they've befriended are like, we've got to get out of here. This crazy lady is making everyone crazy. It's dangerous. We've got to let's just get to the car and just drive, and hopefully we can get out of the mist. Who knows how far it stretches, but we've got to try. What else are we going to do? And so they do that, but then they run out of gas and they're still in the mist. And wait, what are you laughing at?
Because I hated
it's funny until it happens to you.
I'm laughing because I hated the ending so much.
I mean, I did think that was a really cool shot of that giant Lovecraftian beast walking by.
Oh, yeah,
and
that's
they were just
beautiful.
kind of huddling in the car, and I was like, I kind of wanted to see more of that type of stuff. But go ahead.
Well, so in the let me just finish. So in the story, that all happens, and then it's kind of this like ambiguous ending, like what's going to happen next. I think they're driving. I don't remember this,
and there's a radio. They're trying the radio. They're going through the dial over and over again to see if anybody's still broadcasting. And at one point, they're somewhere in Massachusetts on I-95, and they hear. They said he thought of two words. They heard something come through the radio, and it said he just kept focusing on two words: hope and Hartford. And that's how the story ends. And so what happened is he tuned it. They heard some radio station from Hartford, Connecticut. So he knows, like, if we can make it to Hartford, we're out of the mist. And that's just how it ends. It's kind of like hopeful, but you don't know.
And so what happens in the movie is that, they've run out of gas. There's mist everywhere. They can hear like weird monster sounds all around them. There seems to be no hope whatsoever. And they have a gun with 4 bullets left. And there's 5 survivors at this point. So they kind of make a suicide pact. And so the main character, David, he shoots everyone else in the car, including his son. And then he has no more bullets left. And so he stumbles out of the car, screaming at the monsters to come rip him apart. And at that point, a military convoy passes by, so that, if they had waited
with all the survivors,
they would have been
with a
rescued,
and including someone I think who had left the store.
Yeah, the woman who was going out to get her kids.
It was that ending was real. It was a really cool idea, and I think it is really heartbreaking and a real mind twist. But it bothers me that they go from, okay, we ran out of gas, to now we just have to shoot everybody in like 3 seconds. Yeah. And there's no let's brainstorm here. Is there any way out of it? Let's think for this
after 2 hours of basically doing everything they can to stay alive. They're just like, we're out of gas. I guess we should die now. Like
as quickly as possible.
I can't.
They haven't even gotten. Nobody's thirsty yet. They're like still like, oh well, all right. They're
like, yeah, I guess we should just die.
And it's not like they're hearing the monsters come, or the monsters are right outside the car. Right, it's just like, we're sitting here, ran out of gas.
Because the implication is that as long as there's glass between you and the monsters, they can't smell you because they can't see because they're in the mist. So they have to find you by smell. And so if you're in a car with the doors shut, they don't recognize that anything is there. But let me tell you the good things about this movie. So I think
I think the ending's awesome. I don't know
seriously,
you guys are smoking crack. Yeah, like seriously, I think the movie, because so the whole thing too is that Frank Darabont, this is a pretty low budget movie. It's an $18 million budget, and he could have made like a $60 million movie if he wanted to if he was willing to change the ending, like give it a happy ending basically for the studio. And he's like, no, this is the ending I've had in mind for 20 years. This is the movie I'm making. And Stephen King was like, oh yeah, I wish I'd thought of that ending because that's great. And I agree. I think the ending is
I think
sensational.
I think the ending is sensational too. I just think they didn't do it right to where they didn't show it right to where they go from we ran out of gas to let's kill everybody now. It just happened too quick. It was
they literally spend 2 hours of the movie, which is I don't know how many hours movie time, like 3 hours, 3 days, doing everything they can to survive, trying everything, and then they get out, they get away, and it's like, okay, that's it, done. It just didn't work.
Nope.
Yeah, I think, Dave, if you had gone in with your script doctor powers and said, okay, we need to show some time passing here between when they run out of gas and when they decide to kill everyone, I think then it could have worked.
Like maybe they run out of food and there's like, they're surrounded by the bugs and they're like, all right, like, I don't want to go out like that. And he shoots them all. And then all of a sudden the military comes in and starts shooting all the bugs. And he's the only one that, if they had waited, like maybe, like they showed them much, much, much more desperate.
Yeah. There was no desperation.
They accepted their fate too easily. And like he kills his own son and it's like he doesn't even really give it a second thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was really good. I mean, yeah, maybe you could show more time passing, but like I don't know, just because like the whole movie had been so like hysterical. Like it's like everyone's so hysterical. Everyone's so like emotionally overwrought. And at the very end, they just the car comes to a stop, and the older guy in the back seat is like, we gave it our best shot.
We tried.
Can say that we didn't.
Yeah,
I thought that like understatedness was actually really effective,
and it's a real gut punch how at the end he's crouched, kneeling by the car with the empty gun that he's pulled the trigger on he's dry fired it into his mouth several times, and he's just like completely collapsed by the car, and this two soldiers come up wearing gas masks and they look at him, and then they look in the car and you can't see their faces, but like they look in the car and then they look at each other like, holy shit, like they know what's happened. The
thing I didn't like was that they give him this line like, what does he say, like they're dead for nothing, like they died for nothing. It was like, I think I have it written down somewhere, but it's like, dude, we get it. We didn't need you to explain.
Oh, I didn't hear him say anything. I've seen this. I saw it in the theaters, and I've seen it a few times since then. I kind of like the movie, but I never noticed that he says anything. I think he does
say, they died for nothing, something like that. Yeah.
Oh, he says they're dead for what? And then he starts screaming hysterically. I hated that. I thought that really undercut the ending of the movie. I think he should have just been like stumbled out of the car and like it's just like totally shell shocked, standing there watching all the survivors and soldiers streaming by.
That's what I have always thought happened. I never realized he said anything.
No, he says that and then he collapses like screaming and like screaming hysterically. That part didn't work for me, but I don't know. I guess I liked the movie a lot more than Andrea and Matt did. I mean, it did annoy me that the characters did so many stupid things, but so it's sort of like divided though. There's like some survival horror elements I thought worked really well. Like, so they have a guy who's mortally wounded and he needs antibiotics or he's going to die. And they have this discussion of like, okay, is it worth taking the risk to try to get over to the pharmacy next door to get him antibiotics and save his life? Like, that's the kind of like really gut wrenching, decision that you have to make in survival horror that I really like. Or like, is it worth getting out to the car to get the shotgun out of the pickup? Like there was stuff like that was good, but then it was just mixed in with the like, there's no monsters out there. What are you talking about? Stuff that drove me crazy.
And like Andre Braugher, he's the next door neighbor who the main characters had all this legal problems with, and you sort of think they're becoming friends because he drives into the store. But he was the one who's like, "You're making this up. Let's go, people."
Yeah, that made no sense. And I'm like, that was horrible.
Made no sense. And also, that's like Andre Braugher. How do you waste Andre Braugher on that? It just felt so weird to me. Like everything felt weird to me.
All right. Well, can I tell you what I liked about the movie?
Yeah.
So I love the theme. It's like the flip side. You mentioned Castaway, Matt. It's the flip side of Castaway. It's the same theme. It's that if you just hang on long enough, there's hope around the corner. You don't know what good thing is going to wash up on shore. And this movie kind of is a great public service announcement for that, where like, no, don't give up, because idiot, you could turn around 5 seconds later and be like, oh, if only I hadn't given up. The cavalry was like right around the corner. I love that theme, and I also think that this is the most Maine movie of the four. They get Maine really right in this movie. The only thing they get wrong is the mosquitoes in Maine are actually bigger than the ones they showed in that movie.
Yeah, more deadly.
But they got giant mosquitoes, they got giant sea worms, they got crabs, they got lobsters, they got giant spiders. They have that thing at the end I just picture as a massive moose walking across the highway.
Yeah,
only twice as big as a real moose.
Exactly. Well, they weigh like 1,200 pounds, 800 to 1,200 pounds.
Scary. They're so terrifying.
I won't get into that, but yeah, the storm on the lake. If you've ever seen a thunderstorm come across a glacier lake or a lake in Maine, this is I grew up transfixed by these things. They come across the lake like you see this line of mist coming at you, and you're like, what the hell? And it comes closer and closer and closer, and you get this building sense of like, I got to get out of here. And then it hits like a freight train, and there's all this wind ripping, and trees are falling down. There's lightning blasting trees all around you, and it's dramatic. And this movie does that. This book too just takes that and says, okay, let's picture some fantasy element behind that. I've been to that store. I used to drive by there all the time to go hike the Western Mountains of Maine. I live in Central Maine, and I used to stop in at that store and get granola bars and water. And after I saw this movie in the theater, I would walk in there and walk around and go, holy crap, I'm in that store. I'm in the store where this happened, where the bugs were attacking people. And it looks very similar to what they did in the movie. They did a great job in the movie.
Yeah. And actually, because it was low budget, they actually filmed it. Like the store was still in operation while they were filming the movie. So like they would like set up everything for the movie and film it at night. And then in the morning, the store would open and people would come shop. You know, I mean, that's
funny.
Well, that store was in Louisiana, I think, that they filmed it in Shreveport, Louisiana. But it's very similar to the one in Maine where it's set. And it's right. Stephen King has a camp on Long Lake in Maine still, I believe, to this day. And he would go to the town of Bridgeton to pick up stuff. So this is very much out of his experience. And the Maine accents in it were really good. Most of the time, if you're from Maine and you watch a Stephen King movie, half of the fun of it is being like, what are the Maine accents going to sound like in this one? Because half the time they sound like confused like German people, or you never know like what they're going to sound like, but they don't sound like Mainers. If you ever want to hear a fantastic performance with dozens of different Maine accents, all done flawlessly well, listen to the audiobook of Salem's Lot. You can get it on Audible, and it's narrated by this guy, Ron McClarty. And he does like the down east accent is the one that everybody tries to do, but which is down on the coast. But he does like Central Maine accents and Bangor accents. Like he's got like several different Maine accents, and he throws them in for all of the characters. And it's an absolutely, I actually emailed him and got an email back from his wife saying, I'm so, thank you so much. He apparently had Alzheimer's disease and he doesn't do any audiobooks anymore, but it's a fantastic, fantastic performance and a great thing to listen to. I picture Stephen King listening to it and going, holy crap, I love this guy. He's just like nails everything.
Hey, Tom, I wanted to ask you, as soon as I saw it, I was like, I got to ask Tom about this. What was that mountain in the background right at the beginning?
You mean in the lakes?
Yeah.
Picture? That was absolutely an off-key piano note. Like they needed to tune the piano on that one. That was absolutely wrong.
That's what I was like. There's no mountain that looks like that in Maine. Like it's Acadia, but none of them are that big.
Right.
Like,
there is one
huge.
up on Moosehead Lake. There's Kineo, which the legend is that there was a monster moose that fell to earth that died there, and that's the remains of it. But it looks like that. But I don't believe it should have been like a rolling hill in the background, not like this mountain from out west or something. But they wanted to make it look dramatic, so they put that in.
All right. That was the one note. I'm like, wait a minute. That looks like the Rockies.
Yeah, it very much looked like the Rocky. That was the only part of the movie where I was like, they got that wrong. But the rest of it, it's like, no, this feels like Maine.
So wait. So the other thing I want to talk about is that, is the ending like some sort of divine judgment or something like that? Because it's like this really weird coincidence, right? It's like this series of crazy coincidences, right? That there's the woman at the beginning who's like, I'm leaving to get my kids. Who's with me? And nobody's with her. And so she walks out into the mist. And then, he kills his son. And then instantly the mist all clears. She's still alive. It seems to strain credibility that so many coincidences could happen all in that way. And so it really seems like somebody up there is messing with him.
The writer.
Especially if you, especially if you go back and watch the movie, like literally everything Mrs. Carmody says comes true. Like she really does predict everything.
And do the people in the store all live? Does she live? Not her, she doesn't live, but do the rest of the people in the store live? Like the cavalry arrives and they're fine?
Well, apparently Frank Darabont wanted to show all the people in the supermarket at the end, but all the actors had like gone off to other projects and stuff, so he couldn't. But like that was his intent, was that,
wow. And by the way,
but isn't it? It's weird. Like, I just want to mention, it's weird though, right? That like she says they have to sacrifice the son, and then as soon as he sacrifices the son, like everything's fine.
Yeah, I didn't read the movie that way, but it certainly did disturb me thinking about that this time. The first time I ever thought of that is like, wait a minute, like you could almost take it as Mother Carmody was right.
Yeah. It didn't occur to me, but now that you say it, yeah, it does have that feel to it.
But now that you bring her up, Marcia Gay Harden, when I saw her in that role, that's her, right?
Yeah.
When I saw her in that role, when you first see her, my first thought was, no way, miscast, bad idea. And then as you watch the movie, you're like, no, she's perfect in this somehow. I thought she nailed that role.
Yeah, she was great. I mean, there wasn't any real bad performance per se. I just thought it was the general incompetence of everyone that just pissed me off.
Well, William Sadler, he always plays like this kind of badass kind of guy. So when he was just kind of this milquetoast in this, I was surprised. But I don't think it was bad acting. I just think, I expected something different. And I did like Toby Jones.
He's so
I'm a marksman,
Yeah.
That was great.
Everybody.
Yeah,
he's a great actor, and that's a
I
great
love
character.
him. Yeah. I love Toby Jones.
I loved him. I thought all the performances were good.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought the writing of the dialogue was just way too like overheated. It just needed way more subtlety.
Mm.
But I just think the basic idea of these people trapped in a supermarket with misdead monsters outside is a fantastic idea. So I think the movie just gets a lot of its appeal for me just from bringing that basic scenario to life and putting it on screen.
It's funny. Nobody's pointed it out. He's painting the cover, The Gunslinger, at the beginning.
I love that.
I love that
so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, by the way, if you want to read, one of my favorite fantasy books of all time is Drawing of the Three from the Gunslinger series. If you've not read that, you're in for a massive treat.
So is it like the Dark Tower? That's the same thing, right? It's all of a piece.
The Dark Tower he wrote when he was in
The Dark Tower is the
college.
whole series.
Well, I'm sorry. What's
the Dark Tower is the name of the whole series.
Oh, okay.
What's the first?
The first one is the Gunslinger.
The Gunslinger. Pardon me. The Gunslinger he wrote in college, and then he wrote like a book here and there for a while, and then he was like, okay, I'm going to finish this series. I'm going to write them all the rest. But the Drawing of the Three is the second book in the series, and it is amazing. It's a gripping read. It's so fun.
Actually, I said earlier I never read the Dark Tower. I did read the Gunslinger now that I think about it. But I never read that's the only one I've read. All right. So that was a pretty long conversation. So we should probably start wrapping this up pretty soon. Does anyone have any final thoughts or anything else they want to mention about Stephen King or these four movies?
Or just that The Mist is a very similar premise to Stranger Things. The military opens a door up and monsters come through.
They cribbed that whole. I feel like Stranger Things heavily cribbed from King.
His
absolutely. Arrowhead project shows up in a lot of
Firestarter.
his books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also, the Long Walk, you can see the fingerprints of Hunger Games, or at least you can see where the inspiration for Hunger Games comes from. Yeah. So
all those,
all of those. Yeah.
Divergent, all those.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the director of The Long Walk has directed a bunch of.
Oh, that's
Hunger
right.
Games
Yeah.
movies.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Any other final thoughts before we
Well, I'm looking forward to part 2.
end?
I'll say that.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So everyone, stick around for part 2. I actually didn't write down which movies we're going to be talking about, but let's see. It's Dreamcatcher, Firestarter, Cell, and
Did you say Maximum Overdrive?
Maximum Overdrive. Yeah, those are the 4 that we have. So, everyone stick around for that. Should be fun. I've never seen any of those movies, actually. I don't think. I did read the book, Cell, and I read the short story Trucks, but I have not seen the movies. So, that'll be fun. Sure, we'll have lots more to say about Stephen King there. But yeah, so let's wrap things up there. So we've been speaking with Andrea Kail, Matthew Kressel, and Tom Gerencer. So thanks everyone so much for joining us.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
And that was our panel. So big thanks again to Andrea Kail, Matthew Kressel, and Tom Gerencer for joining us on the show. This episode of Geek's Guide to the Galaxy was made possible thanks to support from listeners like you. So if you enjoyed the show and want it to continue, please support us on Patreon over at patreon.com/geeks or via PayPal over at geeksguideshow.com/crowdfunding. All right, so that was our show. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.